It's been given to him by the Father, which means he lacks it, essentially. You silly little goose.
I'll tell you the part that's silly, when you just switched up in your interpretation. I'll show you the part that's silly. Because your answer before... Hold on. Hey, I'll let you answer, yeah? Because your answer before was, it's a spiritual kingdom. It's one that's not of this earth. It's where his Father is. The same kingdom as the Father. Now you switched it to... King of Kings, look, you didn't answer it, but I'm gonna help you understand, right? Nebuchadnezzar, Xerxes, they were kings. They were kings of other little nations. They were kings of other little kingdoms, and they had kings. They were that ultimate authority of their kingship over the other little kings. That's the reason why they had the title of King of Kings. Jesus, this is where I want you to focus on, because you gave me an example of Nebuchadnezzar and Xerxes. So it would follow that you would give me the example about Jesus. If Jesus is King of Kings and he does not have a physical kingdom, what is he the king over? Where is his kingdom? Where is his people? According to the Bible, who are his people and what is his kingdom? Please answer.
Okay, bro, you're just filibustering. I mean, this is so low tier, like, honestly. So, bro, you said a number of things. Let's address them, right? First thing is, what is a king, right? What does it mean to have a kingdom? A kingdom is just to be sovereign over a people or a nation, or to have some kind of authority in a particular group. Jesus says his kingdom is not of this world. So his kingdom is a spiritual kingdom. It's not an earthly kingdom. It's not a material kingdom, right? It's a spiritual kingdom. And he goes on to describe it in the Gospel of John, his Father's kingdom, and how it has many rooms and et cetera, right? And he says that this kingdom is not his. It's been given to him by the Father, which means he lacks it, essentially. You silly little goose. He lacks it, essentially. That shows he's not God. So you just baked yourself again.
You ready?
Let me finish. I'm not done, bro. You said so many things.
All right, go for it. Go for it.
Finish,
remember, those were my main 2 points. Sorry, just clarifying, yeah? Please address Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Go for it.
That's okay, sure, no problem. So again, I've already addressed that. You keep saying I'm not addressing it. I've addressed it, but maybe you just need to, take the earwax out of your ear, bro. A title, any title, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, before Abraham was I am. It doesn't matter what the title is. Any title you ascribe to someone, it doesn't mean that they're the same as the person you're ascribing it to before. Otherwise, for example, you could say that God and the Father, Satan and the Father are both God because they're both ascribed predicatively with God, with divinity. Satan is called the God of this world. God is only a title ascribed to God, and then therefore the Father and Satan are the same. That's basically your argument. The title God must be for the Father alone. It doesn't have to be. The words in Hebrew and the Semitic use of language are far more open to context than that. That's why when you look at a passage and a title ascribed to a particular figure, you have to look at the context. Is Jesus fundamentally, is he a human being? What did Paul think? Did Paul think Jesus was a human being? Nebuchadnezzar, was he a human being? What's his name? The other kings of the patriarchs, were they human beings? If they were, then by their very nature, we know God is not a human, according to Numbers 23:19. God is not a man. So that means that by their very nature, they could never be. You could give them whatever title you want. The very fact of who they are as a nature prevents them from being God the Most High. That's what it is. So with Jesus, you want to make a special exception. You want to say, no, Jesus is a human, but in some convoluted way, he's also not a human. He's also, half God and half not God. And therefore, you want to make some kind of special exception. But the problem is, bro, the language of the Jews doesn't allow for that exception to be made, because it's very clear that the nature of the context of the verse that you're citing makes Jesus a lesser God, a human being who has to be exalted. Because Paul is a Hellenistic Jew. Paul's a Hellenistic Jew. He's influenced by Greek paganism. And in Greek paganism, you have humans who get exalted into the status of gods. That's what happens to all the Roman gods, to all the Greek gods. They're humans who become exalted to the status of God, but they never become the most high God. It becomes part of a pantheon. So Paul adopts that and he applies it to Jesus. Jesus is a God. He's a miracle worker, just like Asclepius, for example. He was a miracle worker and he was famous for his medicinal practice. So they exalted him and made him a God. Paul is doing the exact same thing with Jesus. And he's trying to sugarcoat it and say, well, now there's two gods. There's the one God, the most high God, who creates everything. And then there's his agent, who's his representative on earth, who becomes exalted to his right hand and sits on his throne. And that is through him, dia, the word in the Greek there is dia, that is through him, the agent through which everything is made. Because for him, he's a type of Platonic thinker. He gets his influence from like the Johannine community, etc. So, bro, you're just lacking any context or sophistication or understanding. You just have
Say
this
whatever
rosy
you want, but I
argument.
want to address it. You ready?
Yeah, that's fine. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
Bro.
How long are you going to go on?
Let me finish.
Go on. All right, go on.
Let me finish, man.
Go on.
Anyway, you lack any kind of nuance or context or understanding of the language of Paul, his ideas previously before he converted, and how they affect his understanding post conversion, or the context of the first century Galilee, the first century Judea and Samaria. You have no understanding, bro. That's why you're making these simple blunders. And when the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy says your argument is invalid, bro, that's when you need to put the fries in the bag. Really, I'm just advice to you, bro. Put the fries in the bag, bro.
All right, you're done. Okay, that's great. Now, notice, everyone. Do you notice the craziest blunder he made, and he has no idea what it is, what he just said. You just made the craziest blunder, and everyone can see it. Now, listen to me carefully. You didn't qualify what it means when somebody is a lord. When Abraham is a lord, in what sense is he a lord? Is he a lord over who? Over what? Or like, what does that mean? You need to qualify what that means. When Jesus has that title of Lord of Lords, like I said before, does it qualify whether or not he's a lord over a specific group of people? Or does he have a title that says Lord of Lords, meaning everybody who's known as Lord, including the Father? If you interpret it the way that you're trying to interpret it, he is now Lord over the Father. That does not follow. That doesn't make any sense. So you need to qualify in what sense people were called Lord in the Bible. Here's the crazy blunder he just made. Listen to this, guys. He says, I'm waffling. His little friend there. King of Kings. You want to hear your blunder? You said he had a spiritual kingdom. I agree with you. You said his kingdom was with the Father. I agree with you. Is the Father the king of that kingdom? Yes. So is Jesus now the king of the Father? If they share the same kingdom? Because I was trying to get you to answer this for the longest time, and you don't even know that you just blundered. So if Jesus has the same kingdom as the Father, who the Father is the king over that kingdom, then Jesus is God. Thank you for the blunder. You don't even see it, do you?
No, so let me understand the point, bro. So you're saying, yeah, okay, that's fine.
You don't even see your own blunder. That's crazy.
I do. I'm going to show you how you're wrong, man.
Okay.
I'll break it down very simply.
Because you spent more time insulting.
That's fine.
Rather than addressing the argument. I'm not trying to insult you,
bro.
So address the argument. Go for it.
Hey, for the record, bro, you insulted me first with the binatarian stuff, and then when I showed you you're wrong, you got upset.
First.
I was always respect you. I was respect.
All right, go for it. And again, anyway, I didn't insult you.
So your point is about King of Kings. Your point is about King of Kings, bro. And you're saying that therefore, by my understanding, Jesus would have to be king over the Father because he's described with the title King of Kings. But obviously, that's going to be a qualitative restriction by virtue of who Jesus is. He doesn't need to say that the Father is the Most High because everyone knows that the Father is the Most High. So it's like when, for example, bro, when Jesus says, what's it called? Of that day and hour, no one knows, not the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only, right? Now, Joshua Sidwade, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a scholar, right? He says that this obviously, even though it doesn't mention the Holy Ghost, right? We can assume that the Holy Ghost also knows the day and the hour by virtue of other scripture.
What are you talking? Are you going to address the point that I made, or are you going to run to another argument?
I am.
Okay,
you're just not tracking.
That's not waffle, okay? Come on.
I'm not waffling. I'm making a point, bro. Just follow along with me. Okay. What I'm saying is that there's an exception here that doesn't need to be stated, right? And I'm giving you an example of that. There's an exception here. When you say King of Kings, you're talking about earthly realms, my friend. It goes without saying. It's talking about earthly realms. If I say Nebuchadnezzar is King of Kings, does that mean Nebuchadnezzar is king over God the Father? Of course not. We're talking about earthly rulers. So you have to put it in its context. You're not doing that. You're just taking it out of its context and saying, oh, it must mean unqualified, must be talking over the Father. No one thinks that, bro. Same thing with Jesus. Lord of Lords is talking about here on earth in his ministry on earth and post-exaltation. He's higher than all the men around him. It's not talking about the super celestial matters of which everyone knows the Father is the Most High and there is no other God besides him.
Okay,
silly.
Cool. Silly, eh? It's silly. You're right.
Yeah.
It is silly. I'll tell you the part that's silly when you just switched up in your interpretation. I'll show you the part that's silly because your answer before... Hold on. Hey, I'll let you answer, yeah? Because your answer before was, it's a spiritual kingdom. It's one that's not of this earth. It's where his Father is. The same kingdom as the Father.
People or nation. Jesus says his kingdom is not of this world. So his kingdom is a spiritual kingdom. It's not an earthly kingdom. It's not a material kingdom, right? It's a spiritual kingdom. And he goes on to describe it in the Gospel of John, his Father's kingdom, and how it has many rooms and et cetera, right?
Now you switched it to an earthly kingdom. That's now your new interpretation. Do you notice the switch that you made there? Subtle,
I'm talking about
but I can see
Nebuchadnezzar,
it.
bro.
Right?
I was
Hold
talking
on,
about
hold on.
Nebuchadnezzar,
Did I interrupt you?
That's fine.
Right? So you've now given two different interpretations because you know that the first one didn't follow what you were saying. So when you're talking about Nebuchadnezzar and saying whether or not I qualified it, hold on a second. It is qualified because we know throughout history and through the text that they are earthly kings. The context is earthly kings. You're saying exactly what I was saying about Nebuchadnezzar and Xerxes. But then you try to follow that up with Jesus has an earthly kingdom. Now you're trying to follow that example of Nebuchadnezzar and Xerxes with Jesus having an earthly kingdom, when what you said earlier was he didn't have an earthly kingdom, he has a spiritual kingdom.
It's a spiritual kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom.
His kingdom is with the Father. And I'm going to say this one more time. If he's King of Kings and his kingdom is with the Father, and the Father is also the king of that kingdom, it doesn't follow that he is now the king over the Father. He would have to be in the same kingship as the Father, because they're both ruling and reigning in the same kingdom, therefore making Jesus God. Thank you.
Okay, I want to speak to you normally, bro. I just want to speak normally without I think we can do that, bro. Right? Is that cool?
Okay, let's chill out. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. Let's chill out.
Let's chill out. Right.
Let's chill out.
Bro.
Because you know what? I
say-
like you. Because at least you don't, blaspheme and all that kind of stuff.
No, I'm not into all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I
Bro.
like it. I like it.
So